the day that we first released the Absinthe, which was December 21st of last year, we had, as soon as I showed up to work, there was a line of people. They were here before I got here, and the line ended up snaking through our parking lot and all the way out into the next parking lot. And people don't do that just because they heard something tastes really good. People do that because they hear that this stuff that's been banned for nearly 100 years, it's now available. Well, it had to have been banned for a reason. Even though that's not necessarily the case, when you hear something's been banned for 100 years by the government for your own safety and now it's available again, people get really curious about that. The downside is that this false expectation that it creates, we can't make good on. People expect that this stuff is going to make them hallucinate. It's going to give them a mind-altering experience. It doesn't. Looking in the Merck manual, which is a great resource to go to for chemical compounds and their effects, they classify thujone, which is the active ingredient in wormwood, and the one thing that everybody's the most concerned about, as a convulsant. I might be weird in this, but I don't think convulsions are a recreational activity that I'd like to get into. There are a lot of other things that I'd like to do instead. So I prefer to think that the positive effects for this don't come from the wormwood itself. Wormwood, for me, has its beauty in its aromatic qualities and in its flavor qualities. It's got an amazing depth of character, and that comes through really, really nicely in this. There was a lot of work done by an absinthe distiller who's originally from New Orleans, who went to Paris to do some research about absinthe, and his name's Ted Breaux. And Ted did a bunch of reverse engineering on absinthes that were distilled pre-ban and found that they were typically very low in thujone, typically less than 10 parts per million. And that was because of the way it was distilled. We make it the same way. As far as the treatment of the wormwood and the distillation process, we're using something that was done by Pernod Distillery initially. And so whatever they would be seeing as a thujone content in their product is what we would be seeing, and we're testing out at less than 10 parts per million. The biggest misconception is about lighting sugar on fire and then pouring the water through that. Dangerous with the high alcohol contents that you have present in an absinthe. Ours is 120 proof and would probably catch fire if you had a burning hunk of sugar over the top of it. Any ritual that involves fire is a blast. I love it. Candlelit dinners, hanging out by a fireplace, all that stuff. I'm as big a pyromaniac as anybody else, but it's a great way to ruin a good absinthe. Conversely, I think one of the big reasons that the whole sugar slotted spoon ritual came about was to cover up bad absinthes. There were a lot of absinthes that were undrinkably bitter because it was a way to cover up bad alcohol in something. And so to cover up the bitterness, people added sugar to their absinthe. It's an intriguing part of the ritual, but it's completely unnecessary when you're drinking a good absinthe. That is an absinthe spoon, yeah, and a sugar cube would go right on top of that, and then the water would pour over that, and it would drip through and would sugar the absinthe. I don't even like to put sugar in it just to show for the cameras, just because I don't want to have it in there. I don't want to ruin a perfectly good glass of absinthe.